Hello everyone, our topic today was requested by Chauncey Morris. We'll be going over the Grey Wardens of the Dragon Age franchise. Spoilers for much of the Dragon Age franchise ahead. Duh.
So, first things first. To better understand both why the Grey Wardens exist and why they operate as they do, we need to understand the threat of the Darkspawn. We recommend checking out our video on Darkspawn and the Blight here for a more detailed explanation of the creatures and the threat that they pose to the world. For those impatient or uninterested, however, for the purposes of this video, the important things to know about the Darkspawn are this. They are an army of monstrous creatures that have ravaged Dragon Age's continent of Thedas for over 1,200 years, by the time the first game, Dragon Age Origins, begins. Side note, you play a Grey Warden in that game. And they bring with them a sickening corruption, the Blight, that infects just about everything around them. Lastly, their very blood is poisonous, and thus warriors doing battle with them need to be careful lest a stray spray of blood from a fallen foe get in their eyes, mouth, or otherwise somehow infect them.
The Darkspawn first arrived on the world stage roughly 1,200 years ago during what has since been called the First Blight, when thousands upon thousands of Darkspawn flooded to the surface world. The majority of Darkspawn spend most of their time underground, and began invading, destroying, and sickening everything in their path. Dwarves, elves, and humanity all fought a losing battle against the Darkspawn and their leader, an archdemon, for 90 long years before the tide began to turn, and what turned that tide was the formation of the Grey Wardens. In the real world, a generation is most often considered to be between 25 and 30 years in length, which means that by the time the Grey Wardens were founded, the known world of Thedas had been at war with the Darkspawn and losing for about 3 generations. So imagine fighting a losing war with an enemy with no country to escape to that held any true degree of safety, against an enemy that could literally come out of any cave in the ground and that poisoned local plants, wildlife, and water for so long that the only person in your family who remembers a time before this war was your grandmother, and that you are of family starting age yourself. That was the state of the world when the Grey Wardens were formed. And both history and fiction tell us that in times of desperation such as these, some people will try anything to survive, and this was the case with the Grey Wardens, and the sacrifices they have made in that pursuit have meant the survival of the world ever since their creation.
Originally beginning simply as an organization determined to end the common foe of the Darkspawn without any ties and thus without being held back or supported by world governments and their laws, at first the Wardens stood out only for their singular dedication to the cause, and the openness of their recruitment efforts. The Wardens needed anyone who was willing to fight and anyone with the brains and valor necessary to study their foes. The Darkspawn were a literal cancer upon the world, but more than that, their leader, the Archfiend, could not be permanently slain. If it was destroyed, it would regenerate from another nearby Darkspawn, and their numbers were effectively endless. Hence the world's inability to effectively combat the Darkspawn for nearly a century thus far. Keeping that in mind, the Grey Wardens pursued all avenues of research into defeating their enemy, and accepted anyone with the skills and dedications they deemed necessary. They'd take men, women, nobles, peasants, soldiers, farmers, slaves, mages, blood mages, second-class citizens, merchants, criminals, and everyone in between, if they could prove themselves useful. The Wardens were and are pragmatic. They accepted the fact that Darkspawn didn't care about societal norms. They'd slay a woman as readily as a man, a noble as readily as a slave, a child as readily as a soldier. Everyone was in danger, and everyone had skills to provide. So the Wardens would not ignore any avenue that might give them an edge. They learned combat tactics from various nations. They approved magical research that might otherwise have been outlawed. They practiced brutally efficient battle strategies, and in the wake of their success, they attracted both recruits and alliances from existing nations and their forces. It's worth noting that by the time of the games, no matter where you're from, whether the Wardens are liked or disliked in that part of the world, they are universally acknowledged as unusually gifted in their given fields, because the modern Wardens pick only the best for the joining in the modern day. They still retain their doctrine of recruiting from any rung in society, though, so long as they're deemed skilled or gifted enough to join the Warden's ranks.
Eventually, They found that edge they'd been seeking and created the ritual of the Joining, the secret weapon in their fight against their enemy. Using a combination of magic and alchemy, ingredients including Darkspawn blood, lyrium, and even Archdemon blood when available, are combined into an elixir that each warden drinks during their initiation into the Order. As previously mentioned, Darkspawn blood is poison, and part of the enchantment of the elixir ensures that the taint, the source of the poison, in the blood the wardens drink, is strong. Because of this, though exact numbers and percentages are never given, death is not uncommon for initiates. It's not unheard of for all aspirants in a given joining ritual to perish, or for only one or two to survive. However, it is the way of the wardens to honor their brothers and sisters, and because initiates are offering their lives to the wardens, success or failure of the joining notwithstanding, initiates are considered full members of the Order when they go through the joining, and as such, those who die during the joining are numbered among the honored dead of the warden's ranks, thought of as no less than those who give their lives defeating an archdemon.
You are called upon to submit yourself to the taint for the greater good.
Join us, brothers and sisters. Join us in the shadows where we stand vigilant. Join us as we carry the duty that cannot be forsworn. And should you perish, know that your sacrifice will not be forgotten, and that one day we shall join you.
A successful joining grants a number of abilities and a notable drawback. First and foremost, a warden who has completed their joining ritual is the only known being capable of slaying an archdemon. An archdemon's seeming immortality comes from the taint shared by it and all Darkspawn. When its body is destroyed, an archdemon's powerful soul transfers to the nearest Darkspawn, a tainted but empty vessel that the soul can then inhabit and transform into a fully reformed archdemon. A Grey Warden is forever infested by the Darkspawn taint as a result of the joining, and as such, when the final blow to an archdemon is struck by a Grey Warden, they become the nearest tainted being. However, as they possess a soul already, something goes wrong in the possession process and both souls are destroyed, ending the archdemon for good and depriving the Darkspawn of the will that guides their hive mind. This process is always fatal for the Grey Warden in question, unless you happen to have a bangable witch on hand with cheaty magic, but that sacrifice is of course considered worth it by the Order, considering the alternative. In addition to this, the joining joins the Wardens, at least tertiarily, to the vague hive mind of the Darkspawn, which has side effects that can be controlled with time and practice, but functionally acts as a two-way locator beacon. A warden can sense the presence of nearby Darkspawn, and Darkspawn in turn can sense the presence of nearby wardens.
Lastly, the drawback. The joining seemingly renders a warden immune to the taint of the Darkspawn, but really it just grants them incredible resistance, or possibly a form of the taint so advanced that it kills off any new tainted infections that might otherwise kill or turn a warden. After the joining, a warden never needs to fear contracting the taint from the Darkspawn, and in fact the joining ritual can cure an individual otherwise fated to die due to the taint. But the body and mind can only withstand the effects of the taint, even the Grey Warden's special version of it, for so long before breaking down and giving in. The exact time given varies by individual and circumstance, but all wardens will die an early death, either in battle or because of the taint. An average warden has between 10 and 30 years after the joining before the taint catches up with them and they begin to succumb to the infection. They will begin to hear the calling, the same song that drives Darkspawn to find an archdemon, and when that happens, they know their number's up. At this point, a warden will travel into the deep roads and spend whatever time of sanity they have left fighting alongside their longtime allies, the Legion of the Dead. Essentially, the dwarven version of the wardens, minus the joining ritual. Honoring oaths going all the way back to the first blight between the two orders to aid one another in times of trouble. The Legion accepts these seasoned warriors gladly, and when the time comes that a warden finds their control waning, they strike off alone from their Legion brethren, with honors and glad farewells, usually pointed toward a notable Darkspawn infestation, and die in battle, alone, in the dark, before the taint can consume them, and the old warden becomes one of the very creatures they spent their entire lives fighting.
Counting the first Dragon Age game, there have been 5 blights over the course of history, each separated by at least a century, and with the exception of the 5th blight, the blight in Dragon Age Origins, each has been worse than the last. And through all of them, the Grey Wardens have been there. The Wardens have been instrumental in defeating every blight, to be fair, a requirement when you consider that they're the only people capable of killing the Archdemon. In fact, after the events of the First Blight, the Wardens were granted legal powers to be able to conscript anyone forcibly into the Order at any time in any nation, if they deemed it necessary. Though this power can cause political issues if used without a blight looming, additionally, they can call upon aid from almost every nation to rally together during a blight, though politics being politics, some idiot nations have sat out a blight or two anyway. In the centuries that passed between the blights, Wardens' popularity and acceptance rose and waned. Obviously, the desire for Wardens' aid and support for them rises immediately during and after a blight, but support for them also decreases in times in between. When the blights are distant memories and only the dwarves and the people of the Enderfells, the place on the surface hit hardest by the blights, see the Darkspawn with any regularity. Meaning that, for the most part, the only people on the surface who stand vigilant against the next blight are the Grey Wardens themselves.
In times of peace as well as war, the Wardens have earned the name Grey, because, unsurprisingly considering the nature of its creation, the Order as a whole exists in a vast, grey area. Though actual actions vary based upon those in power at the time, as a general rule, the Wardens are willing to go to nearly any length to achieve victory against their foe, and maybe, just maybe, win the overall war against the Darkspawn once and for all. Between blights, the Order spends a reasonable amount of time doing as you'd expect. Things like aiding the Dwarves, Legion of the Dead, and the subterranean fights against the Darkspawn. But the Wardens also, as previously noted, have far fewer strictures internally than most law-abiding organizations. Throughout the games, we find accounts of Wardens who are less morally upright, or simply terrified, dipping into resources or performing research and experimentation that would be frowned upon at best, or cause a call for action against the Wardens at worst. Some notable examples include the attempt of creating a joining ritual for the Warden's Griffins. Yes, the Griffin heraldry exists for a reason. Since their inception and for hundreds of years thereafter, Wardens rode the mighty Griffins into battle, until the aforementioned ritual was used, went sideways, and caused the effective extinction of the Griffin species. In Dragon Age Inquisition, the Wardens of one country, under the impression that they were all suddenly being forced into the calling stage, summoned an army of demons in order to lead a charge into the deep roads and take out the remaining archdemons before all of those Wardens succumbed to the taint, which backfired when that process was used to mind control many of the Warden mages responsible for the summonings.
But the Grey Wardens have also most definitely earned their reputation for heroism as well. They have, after all, literally saved the world no less than 5 times by the end of Game 1, and assisted in protecting towns, countries, and the world itself from other non-Darkspawn related threats. In fact, that aforementioned demon summoning group of Wardens joined the player against the big bad guy after you sort them out. What's more, time has slowly revealed that there's even more to the secrets of being a Warden than they themselves realize, with one Warden being inexplicably cured of the taint, and thus free to live a long, normal life thereafter. Another, through experimentation with the taint, lived decades longer than was normal, while also increasing the power drawn from the taint. A Darkspawn of unusual intelligence even found a way to reverse engineer the joining ritual for use on Darkspawn, granting them greater degrees of intelligence and freedom from the Archfiend's call thanks to the resistance of the taint possessed by the Wardens. A mage discovered that the Warden who slays the Archdemon needn't die if the proper rituals are performed and a different vessel is made available. And the same in-game year that the most recent game ended, a clutch of surviving griffins was discovered. So there's still much to learn about what it means to be a Warden, and the epilogues for the most recent games indicate that there may be more changes and upheaval in their future. But whatever comes, so long as the Grey Wardens stand, the best among them, at the very least, will champion the fight against the Darkspawn, watch stoically for their return in peacetime, and gladly lay down their lives for the people's protection. In war, victory. In peace, vigilance. In death, sacrifice.
And that's basically the Grey Wardens. Watchmen eternal in the fight against the Blight. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for topics you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Chauncey Morris and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.